Finish him! Get over here!
Hey guys, welcome. This is going to be a tier list for Masterminds on Resistance. Okay, so before we start, let me just, I've been playing the game since the beta. I have all the cosmetics here, as you can see, and I have like more than a million points there. So my opinion here is based on a lot of experience. Just want to clear that out. And my opinion, okay, is based on the meta itself. Like, I'm not giving my opinion based on you playing the worst survivors. I'm playing my opinion. My tier list that I'm gonna give you guys is based on playing the best survivors you can possibly play. Okay, they're using the best builds. They're playing together. You're communicating. Those are in a scenario like that. That would be my tier list. Okay, it's not like, okay, you're playing pubs. This is the tier list. No, that's not what I mean. It's like actual facing the best survivors. Okay, as you can see here, I do play survivor as well. So all my survivors are like 60 higher. So I do play both sides, and my masterminds are pretty much all higher than 100 here, as you can tell, with exception for Spencer. So let's just start there. I'll try to be quick about it, okay, so not to make this too long. Let's start from the bottom up, okay? So, and remember the disclaimer that I mentioned, this is about facing the best survivors that are using the best builds, okay? The worst mastermind in the game would be Annette, okay? Now, the reason for that is because, as you can see there, she's all about creatures and buffs. Creatures are not, like, they're the worst thing in the game that the mastermind can use, because they are very, even if they're strong creatures, they're very easy to avoid, okay, by the survivors. You also have, like, a Martin that can flashbang them, just a random flashbang. Tyrone can kick them. You have Kashimas. There's so much stuff the survivors can use against you have elusive Tyrone where you cannot grab him. There's just like so much things. It's very easy to counter the creatures. The creatures are way like insanely slower than the survivors. They can just run past them. Sometimes they can run past like in between three creatures and not even get a hit. You're not even get hit by them or grabbed. It's so stupid. They're slow, stupid. They get up from the floor very slow, as you probably tell if you ever play Mastermind. So like you cannot spawn the creatures on top of them because they get hit before they even get up. And when they get hit while getting up, they get put back on the ground and have to go through the full animation again. That's pretty stupid. And that's even if you're controlling the creatures. Not to mention, the worst thing about everything is really just the stun lock. There's no limits. There's no like cooldown to stun locking a zombie. Especially all the survivors nowadays use the shotgun, which pretty much every single shot stuns the creature. So it's like even if you're controlling the creature like when in that, and the creature's like insanely strong, you're still getting like infinitely stunned until you die. This is pointless, like you wasted like so much energy to spawn the creature. You control the creature to go do some damage, but then they just shoot you once and you're stunned like for like 10 seconds, and then before those 10 seconds they stun you again, and you're kind of recycling the stun over and over again, and you cannot even move while you're taking damage until you die. So it's kind of just stupid. And that's if you happen to get up from the floor, because you might not even get up from the floor, depending on the situation, because they can shoot you down before you get up, and then you go down again. So it's just, creatures are so bad, okay? They're the easiest thing to avoid by the survivors. So that's why Net is the worst, because she relies on that. She relies on the worst thing in the game to do anything at all. Now, having said that, I still think like the best build for her, I'm kind of testing out this build, but it's probably a build that revolves around the defense here and the enhancement with the great increases help. So you have essentially like really strong creatures that are just walking around the map and they're really hard to kill. Waste a lot of the survivors' resources. So that would be, I would say, the best build for her. Is again a very heavy focus on buffs and also increased health. So the creatures are walking around. And they're really hard to kill by the survivors, even though again they can't get ignored. So that's why she's not that good. And the second best build would probably be something around the using ambush here, as you guys probably know the famous ambush and that build. Some people like to use it with React, so that would be kind of her best options. And personally, you have my builds that I kind of put guns into it. If you see my meta build that I made for her, that's less counterable because it just does not rely only on creatures. So yeah. But she's still the worst. Okay, regardless if you try to do my builds on her, she's still gonna be like, if you're playing like those SWAT teams and you want to get bullied, she's the one to go to. Okay, because she's by far the worst to playing like actual good survivors. And another reason for that is because Birkin is by far the worst mastermind, worst spy weapon in the game as well. He's so slow. Like his damage, he has very low damage output on his attacks. His attacks are actually pretty hard to hit. They also slow attacks, you know, so the survivors grabbing with him is really hard as well. The survivors can easily dodge that. You know, it's just so bad. Like he has to be enraged to do anything useful at all. You know, if he's not enraged, he pretty much moves slower than the survivors itself. The creatures itself is pretty stupid. So he's just bad, so bad on every single aspect. He kind of does this animation constantly. That he kind of it almost feels like he's doing a seizure. He's having a seizure. Especially when you're enraging and going outside of enrage, he does this animation and he's kind of stuck there for like 3 seconds before he can move. It's so stupid. He can barely follow the survivors and he still has a ton of animations just to slow him down. So he's just trash. Like, and even if you happen to grab the survivor, it takes so long to down him. The others can easily to kill him. The others can easily stop the grab from happening, from ending, or they can literally do like 2 objectives by the time you finish the animation on killing one person with the grab. So it's just stupid, like insanely bad. So that's why she's the worst. She relies on the worst thing in the game, which are creatures, in terms that the Mastermind can use, and the most counterable thing you can use is creatures, and Birkin is shit essentially. She's the worst power weapon in the game. So she pretty much has the worst of everything. That's why she's the bottom tier. Coming up next, we have Spencer. Okay, so he's the second worst in the game. Now, he used to be the best one in the game, but they nerfed him so much to the point where nowadays he's just almost as bad as Annette. He's just not worse than Annette because he's more versatile, so he can play guns and things like that better than Annette can. Okay, so that's for the only reason why I would say he's higher than Annette in terms of like winning and whatnot. And the reason for that is because he's essentially a mastermind with no power. You know, like Annette, for example, she doesn't have the energy that Spencer has, but she actually has really strong creatures. Okay, you know, all the masterminds, they don't have the same energy as Spencer has, but they actually have like powerful skills to back it up. That low energy. Spencer is the opposite. He has like a lot of resources, but very like a bunch of weak stuff that he can do with those resources. Okay, so it's kind of pointless. Like, what's the point of having resources if you're just throwing weak shit on the survivors? You know, they can easily deal with it. So it's just like a spam of weak things that do nothing. So it's just like the resources is kind of pointless at that point because you can't do anything strong with it. So that's for that reason. Like the best build that kind of works for him is a build that relies on, again, like I'm telling you about playing against the best survivors, is a build that relies on cameras, and having like infinite shield, kind of with this thing right here, mod efficiency, and he kind of plays the terminals on area 2. That's kind of his best bet, and playing guns when it comes to winning against the survivors. If you're playing creatures, it doesn't matter if you're spamming. Like the good survivors will just destroy your creatures, especially if they have a Samuel. Like I cannot even think about the annihilation. And then you have Valerie with surplus. If you watch my video for my tier list on the survivors, I kind of explain all that there. So he's like so bad. I mean, the creatures are so bad. Everything's bad on him. It's just like he's very versatile in the sense that he can copy the build of every other mastermind, but he just doesn't do a good job at it. He's not efficient on that build as the other ones are. Okay, just like a lot of resources with no power whatsoever behind it. That's kind of what he is. So, but with the terminal, it kind of works because you can kind of keep the infinite shield. You can kind of waste a lot of time with that and does win the game, which kind of is his purpose, as you can see there. It's kind of tells time stealing and mods, so he's kind of all about that. He's not really about spamming creatures, guns. He's about nothing, just about time stealing and mods, which is kind of no power in it. It's not a power in itself, time stealing and mods. So that's why he kind of is a killer or mastermind with no power, just resources. But yeah, so the best build I would say for him would be the instant trap build. I already made videos on all this, okay, so I'm not gonna bother show everything here, not to make the video too long. But he has this build right here, which is the not this one, which is the instant trap build, similar to Alex. That's one of his strongest ones, and the second strongest one I think would be the first strongest one would probably be this one. Maybe they're tied together, but this one is the one for the infinite shields, like I mentioned. Using all this stuff for the terminals, and it kind of helps a lot. And a lot of guns as well to help you take the time away from the survivors. But yeah, for that reason, Spencer is the. Some people might disagree with me, but just put him to the test against good survivors, and you see what I mean is true. So Annette and a Spencer. So worst, second worst, Spencer. Now let's move on. Let me just be mentioning his bioweapon is obviously better than Birkin as well. You can pretty much get free kills with this. The defuse, especially combining with the immobilizing round, so that reason why he's also better than Nets. And then now to the top 3 in the game, which is Daniel. Okay, he's kind of has the same problem as Annette in the sense that he relies on creatures. However, The reason why he's not that bad is because he's actually much more versatile. And because of this card right here, this card right here solves his resource problem. That kind of Spencer has a lot of resources. He actually has the resources with this card right here, and combined with the shuffle mod, you can do a lot of fun stuff with this. So he has the resources and he has the power of the creatures to back it up, like I mentioned. He has both. Okay, so that's why he's better than Spencer. His bioweapon is better than the other two as well. Because Spencer, you can guarantee a kill with the defuse, but it's only one kill. Okay, you can use the. I'm saying people are gonna mention the refract variation, but you know that you're not gonna use it that often. You're not gonna kill the entire team with it. It's just not the same thing. Tyrant, on the other hand, Mr. X can actually counter flashbangs as well in his hand. He can counter, things that are thrown at him. He's much harder to down than Birkin as well, for example. So that's why he's also better than Birkin. He can counter the flashbang. Birkin cannot counter anything. He just eats everything. Like if they throw a flashbang at you, especially that acid gun, they can just kind of stun lock you forever. With Birkin is so dumb and bad. They cannot do that with Mr. X. Okay, because he can block the stuns, the flashbangs. So he's much better in that sense, and he's much more threatening as well. Like his power, his attacks are not as slow as Birkin. They do a little more damage. He has the tracking. He has the bull rush, so he can kind of follow up to the survivors if they go too far, which is something that Birkin cannot do. For example, Birkin is so slow. So yeah, much better. And he also has the controlling the creatures. Now his only problem is really the Kashima, and that's why he's not the best mastermind in the game. Is because there's a thing called Kashima. If there was not Kashima in the game, he would definitely be the best, I would say. He would be pretty much impossible to down because with the 25 points, you can make the creatures insanely strong. That's probably why, like, you can actually make creatures so strong to the point that it's kind of not balanced. So that's probably why the devs introduced Kashima to the game. But I don't think they did that in a good way because the Kashima is way stronger than it should be, I believe. Considering how long it can last, especially on Tyrone. Again, if you see my tier list video for the survivors, you hear a little bit more about that. So yeah, that's why he's the second best. His cards are super well. He has a remote shot as well. Insanely good card. You can literally kill the entire team with this card on the course. And he has this equilibrium mod as well, which is similar to this card. It just helps him. With this equilibrium, you can have the type of energy of Spencer as well. He has the resource problem dealt with, as well as insanely strong creatures. That when you do control, when they're not getting Kashima infinitely, it actually destroys the survivors when that's not happening. And he can also play guns, like I mentioned. He's more versatile because of this card right here. So yeah, with the shuffle mod, so that's why he's better than these two combined here. Okay, he kind of has the thing both do, but in a much better way. But again, his downfall is the Kashima. Okay, so if you're playing good survivors and they all know how to use the Kashima. Not just use the Kashima, but also use it in a way that preserves the Kashima, you're going to lose. There's just nothing you can do. Because you cannot play him otherwise. He's just all about creatures. You would have to play guns. You have to use the guns and kind of throw creatures to the sideline. But even then, the good survivors can still beat you, okay? They will still be able to, do the objectives and things fast enough to, even though you're shooting them with the guns, you're still, lose. And again, Jan can also destroy your cameras. So... anti-armament, for example. So for that reason, he's in the top 3. Now moving on to the top 2 in the game is between Alex and Nikolai, and the top 2 goes to Nikolai. Okay, Nikolai is the second best in the game. Reason for that, he doesn't play creatures, so cameras are kind of harder to counter than creatures. Like it's kind of hard to avoid getting shot at if you're just like in the line of sight. So, and not the same with creatures. Creatures have to breach the distance gap to even get a hit on the survivors, so they can be shoot from afar. The creatures are slow. The cameras are just there, so you can shoot them at any point. So it's much better. And not just that, but he has the damage as well to back up the weapons. He has Nemesis, which is probably the type of humanoid best bioweapon in the game. So deadly, very hard to avoid. With the extermination here, it has invincibility, can counter flashbangs as well. Really good. The damage as well to discount the guns. It has this thing right here, which kind of changes the game for playing cameras. So every time as long as you have energy, you pretty much have an infinite. You pretty much have what I said Spencer does with infinite shields. It's kind of him, as long as you have energy. So with this guy right here, so that's why it's really good. This is kind of okay as well, but it's mostly this thing that changes the game. when it comes to playing cameras. Okay. However, he's not the best because Jan with anti-armament, our anti-armaments can still kind of trash you, because that anti-armament just breaks cameras. Okay, altogether. So for that reason, he's not the best in the game because Jan can kill you literally just by herself. A good Jan, the kind of Jans that I know that play, like again, the tier list is based on the best survivors. She's gonna wreck you, even if you're using this guy. Okay, so that's why you can still win though. He definitely has way more chances of winning than these other guys right here against good survivors. So that's why he's top 2. For those reasons, and yeah, pretty much for those reasons. Now moving on. Let's see if there's anything worth mentioning. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like he played guns. Guns are real hard to counter. They do not get a lot of time against him because he's not spawning creatures. Especially with modified gear, you can kind of disassemble the gun before they destroy it, so they get no time as well, even though they're getting shot and losing time. So it's really good. And the damage as well. The damage just helps you down him a lot. It puts a lot of pressure. A nemesis, game changing. But yeah, he's top 2, top 1 in the game, Alex. Now, to be truth with you, like she's actually not that good. She's pretty trash. Like she's kind of worse. She's kind of worse than Daniel. But the reason why she's the top 1 in the game is specifically because of this build right here. Okay, it's not so much because of her. It's more like because of the build she can do. Okay, which is the Area 3 build where she kind of spams everything forever. The Apocalypse Contagion build that I like to mention. I already made a video on it. If you guys want to see it, it's the best build in the game by far. The only way the survivors are gonna beat this build if they're playing on a map like Downtown or something that's so broken of a map that for you as a mastermind it can kind of be impossible, okay, to stop, just because of how bad the design of the map is and just how favored the map is in the survivor. Okay, so even with this build you might lose on those maps, Downtown and maybe Research Facility as well. Okay, maybe I said maybe. Okay, it's not guaranteed because the build is so strong, very hard to beat. But against a good squad on those maps, they're honestly not even balanced maps. There's a chance they might beat you. Okay, there's just a little chance. Yeah, Reason Amplify here, Contagion. I already made a video on this build, so again, not to waste too much time here. She actually used to be the worst mastermind in the game. Kind of similar to Spencer was the best, but then with time the devs buff her so much that now she's the best one, and she can do this build as well. So now she pretty much breaks the game with this build. So this is the deck as well. The deck that I'm showing you here is an update from the one that you're going to see on my video about this build, the Contagion Apocalypse. Okay, so use the one that I'm showing you here. This is the best one, not the one that I have on that video. That video is still good, but it's not as optimized as this one that I'm showing you here, okay, as well as the equipment here. And yeah, guys, and she also has an Insta Trap build, which I would say is like the second best, which would be the deck right here. I also have videos on it, which would be the second best build for her. So these two builds, the instant traps and this infinite thing with Infection and Contagion, is by far the best builds in the game, and the hardest to counter by the survivors. Like even I've been in teams even using Vaccine with Val with this build is insanely. It's pretty much impossible. Not gonna lie. If you play it properly, like I know, you need to play it properly, like I do. Otherwise, you're gonna lose. Okay, because this build is not. It's not just about spamming. There's a strategy behind how you use those cards. So if you're not using that strategy properly, you're going to lose. But if you're using the strategy properly, the build is pretty much invincible. Again, like I mentioned, you're pretty much only going to lose if you're playing on a map that is kind of unbalanced. Okay, to you as a mastermind, it's unbalanced in the sense like this Downtown, for example, the survivors can shoot the core without even getting close to it. It's so stupid. There's so many angles they can shoot the core without any type of danger. It's too dumb. The map is very small as well. It's just broken on so many levels. The camera angles suck. So that's why. But on maps like that, you might lose if you're playing the strategy right. But again, I said might, and I'm not guaranteeing you will. This build is still strong enough that you might even win against good squads on those maps. But yeah, that's for that reason. For those builds alone, that's why Alex is the top 1. If you're using those builds. If you're not using those builds, she's kind of worse than Daniel. Okay? But again, I have to be honest with you guys. So if you're using those builds, she's the top 1. So just from the bottom up again, and that's the worst. Spencer, second worst. Top 3 is Daniel. Top 2, Nikolai. Top 1, Alex, with those builds that I showed. And you're going to pretty much win every single game. So yeah, guys, that's the tier list for Masterminds. Comment below what you think. Let me know if you guys want to discuss more as well. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Let me know what you want to see, more on the comments. Always a pleasure to talk to you guys. And yeah, that's the video. See you guys in the next one.